Kanban?
We're going to talk about how to write and organize software.
Okay.
How many people know what Kanban is? Cool. How many of you guys use it in any form, capacity, or whatever? Sweet. I get to corrupt everyone's mind in this room. Excellent. So, first of all, who am I? My name is Rick Harding. I've been coming here for years. The group helped get me into Linux and stuff back in the day when I worked in Flint as a little one-man IT team. I work for Canonical. I'm on the Juju UI Engineering team, which I'm leading now, so I've turned manager-ish man, which means Kanban's really cool to me now. And we give you the cool things like the Juju GUI, Juju Quick Start, and all that kind of stuff. So we love the cloud and all that stuff. So, okay, so I'm going to convince you guys. Hold on, I got to get prepped for this. Look deep into my eyes, and I will hypnotize you and convince you of these things, right? That work is basically a queue of things to do, and you have your things to do and things that are done, and you work them from things that need to be done into the done side, right? That's a pretty, not too much of a stretch. Multitasking. How many of you guys are like, I'm a great multitasker? Yeah, if you ever stop and think about it, every single study ever done says that multitasking is a myth, that you don't want to do it, it's a waste of time, and context switching is a horrible drain on productivity in any workplace, especially in software, where it's a thinking man's game or a woman's game, and things like phones should never be at your desk, and you should never be allowed to have IM, and all this kind of stuff, because it will cause you to context switch and multitask. Now this one, some of the people who are very proud about their multitasking skills might fight me on, but the studies prove I'm right. And three, that all tasks are tasks that can be broken down into smaller parts. You may not do it this way, but most things can be broken down. You know, to build a building, the first thing you gotta do is get a pile of bricks sitting in front of it. You know, like everything is broken down into small little tasks, and you'll need to kind of keep this in mind as we work through this idea of Kanban. So, I'm going to introduce you guys to my great and powerful friend, the sticky note. This is a tool of most powerful organization skills. On a sticky note, you can stick information, such as what in the world are you doing? You can stick on who's doing it, so I implied it was you, but it could be Bob, or John, or Jane, or whoever, right? So if it's on a sticky note, that's kind of cool. When will it be done? A sticky note can give great powerful information, like when this task should be accomplished, or if it's been accomplished, or what it's up to. And the sticky note can give other bits of information, such as, hey, this task, this story, this item is blocked. So no one's doing it right now. It's waiting in a queue, it's whatever. And all this can fit on a sticky note. And you can kind of like see, you know, hey, you can fit, there's corners to a sticky, there's a big main thing, there's information for things like priority or whatnot. And sticky notes are freaking awesome. So everyone go out and buy lots of sticky notes. I just bought stock in their company, you know, before this meeting, so I can get all this money. So, in the world of Kanban, you have one mission. Move that card, come on now. You know, you got that sticky note, you're gonna move it across a great and powerful board of tasks to do, right? So, what we need is a place for our sticky notes to live. A place where you can see what the master plan is and we can all view visually together just what the heck we're doing as a team. And so you might just stick a board on the wall. And in this case we don't have sticky notes, but we've got task cards basically. And Kanban kind of is visually appealing like this, where you have queues of work, and you've got the to-do queue. How many guys have a to-do list right now going on? How many have more than one? Yeah. How many of you guys know how many items are on that list? Okay, a lot of hands did not go up on that one, right? Because it's hard to visualize on a to-do list what exactly you've got to do. How many of you guys on that to-do list keep track of what you're actually doing right now? About half of the to-do people, right? And how many of you guys can actually tell me what you accomplished, what's been done this week? All right, you guys are not too bad on that. So the nice thing is that if you consider things that you're working on as little items, little stories, and you know, you go from the working queue, what's in progress, to what's done. As a team, if we were to all look at this board, and this is we're building a software project, and we all stood around this thing, it's very easy to every day look at this and know what's going on. What is in what state. So when the head boss man comes in and goes, hey, how's this thing doing? How's that feature that we requested that you little peons go do? How is it? You don't go, oh, well, you gotta go, John's been doing something with that, and Bill's something, you gotta kind of go piece all together. No, we just go to the Kanban board and we can visually see what's going on, where, when, and why. So, there are, of course, this is a system which must have rules. The system cannot live without rules and structure. So, first of all, everything should be queued, right? The general idea of this is that you know ahead of time what needs to be done. You might even know what order they need to be done. And things will move from one, we'll call it lane, to another. And you may have multiple lanes. So you may have not just the back queue of what we need to do, but it may be in current development. It may be in design. It may be in a lane called, let's say, waiting for testing or waiting for quality assurance or whatnot, right? So we're basically going to have these items work across the lanes, but we're going to have queue points wherever items could get backlogged or take longer or whatnot, because we never want to have, we always want to be able to tell where things are, but we don't want to hold things up along the way if we don't have to, right? The nice thing with this kind of idea is if you define what needs to be done up front in the front queue, you can free up developers or people to pick any item from the list. They all have to be done. And if you can do some ordering, but for the most part, all these tasks don't have to be done in a single order. You can pick whatever you want to work on. And I'll show you how our board works like this, because it's actually kind of cool to have the freedom to not just do the same thing every day. You know how many guys are like specialists where you're the guy that does this one thing on every project and you get stuck with it because they know you've done it before and they make you do it again. Studies have shown that developers who can implement some form of change in their daily routine are actually more productive. They're happier, they're more productive because they get a chance to break out of the mold a little bit. Every once in a while, grab a card that's a UI front-end change instead of always being the guy stuck working on the email queue system, And it's actually, it's a really kind of cool, able to free you up there. The other thing, we talk about multitasking. You will work on your one card at a time. If your card is stuck, then we'll go figure something else out. But the idea is that you're going to shepherd this little card for as long as you own it through whatever it needs to go through to get across the board. But you're only going to work on that one thing. Again, context switching and multitasking, and you get hung up on this and then that, and there's a lot of wasted time in the system like that. And then that's it. Move it across the board, right? So we'll look around. Except here's the trickiest part of it all. A Kanban board, the key thing that people miss when they look at one is that every lane should have a hard limit on how many items are allowed to exist in that lane. You need to limit the amount of work that's in progress at any given time, right? And this is, you think of this like your plumbing system. If, the pipe is so big, you can only fit so much through it. If you try to fit more through it, you're going to have problems. And we don't want problems. What this really comes into is that, so let's say we're going to plan a project. We're going to write out the 50 things that need to be done, okay? We may go through and know that our team can move 5 cards across a board, let's say in a week. Let's say they can all do 1 card a week, We've got 5 members of the team. We've got 50 cards. There is no sense going through and bothering with all 50 of those tasks right now, because we're only going to get 5 done this week. The developer shouldn't have to worry about any more than the one they're going to get done this week or whatnot. So we're going to put a queue on how many items are in the backlog for the devs to pick from. Because we don't want them reading 50 cards and trying to figure out which one looks interesting. They'll spend half a day doing it. Right? So if we can move 5 guys in a week, maybe we'll put 7 in the backlog. And that's limiting the backlog work in progress available. Right? We're only going to have 5 devs. You can only work on one thing at a time. So our working lane will be 5 cards long. If anything happens to a card in that lane where it's stuck, we don't just say, well, go grab another one, because that card has to move. And there has to be motivation and poking and prodding to get you to move that. You know what? You're stuck. You need to go get help. So we're not going to have this card laying around for a week at a time because, well, I haven't had a chance to talk to Johnny down the road, who's the master of this and can help me unblock. No. Let's unblock this and move this along right now. There's less wasted time. When you get to like your testing versus your development cycles, you'll find that testers may be able to get through 10 cards a week because it's less work to test it than to originally write it. So you may have a testing lane that's 10 wide while your development lane is 5 wide. And what you want is a nice flowing work items flowing through the system at a nice rate To do that, because one's 5 and one's 10, this is when you'll need a queue in the middle between the two lanes, so that as the developers work, they can fill up the testing queue, and the testers can grab a card and move it across, you know. But they're going to get twice as many of them done at a time. And so you can monitor that queue to get an idea of how you're doing in the system. Are you guys not working fast enough in the development cycle? Are the testers doing, you know, are they getting behind too much, where maybe you should take a dev and move over to testing for a little bit to help keep the flow out and stuff? But we want to make sure we keep like a nice clean system here. And limiting work in progress is this really big thing. So we're going to limit the cards everywhere. Every lane that we have will have some limit. And if you reach that limit, it's a sign that the system is in trouble, and we need to look at whether we need to address it. And you can address things in many ways. I need more resources. We need more devs to help keep under our work in progress limits on this lane. We have to redefine the workflow. Maybe the work in progress limit is just not sensible. You know, we may have to change it. It just doesn't actually work in practice. It's great in management theory or whatever. And so everything will be limited. One of the really cool things about doing this is that how many of you guys have an item that you would love to do on your current project but have no time to do? Something kind of mundane, like I would like to update the test runner to the latest version, or I would like to see if using a different database package would be faster and more performant for our app. But it's not a priority to get, you know, to earn money for the company, but it's something important that should probably be done at some point. Often this falls under things like CI, testing, infrastructure kind of things that you just never make time for. One of the nice things, if you limit the work in progress numbers of these lanes, is you actually free up developers. If a developer's stuck, then he can go grab something from the Slack lane, which has various tasks to do. And what's great is devs all have these. They all want to get them done. All these Slack items tend to actually make development better and smoother going forward. If you improve the testing infrastructure, everyone benefits. But it's not a direct bottom line thing, so no one ever says like, hey, you can actually just take this week and work on testing infrastructure, you know? And so what's nice is when you have these work in progress limitations, you have a very predictable amount of work you can get done in a period of time. So as a manager, you can very easily say, this feature is 10 cards, we move 5 cards a week, this feature will take 2 weeks to do. And if we have extra time within that 2 weeks, developers can work on making great helpful improvements from the Slack task setup, and no productivity is lost. The higher ups don't know. It's super secret. Shh. You know, that you could have gotten the feature done in a week and 3 days. They don't know. And developers love this, right? They love the fact that they get to do extra things. So I kind of mentioned one of the keys to this is that you have certain limitations. So you ever been told to like go through all the features you need to do and prioritize them all? And then, you know what, let's have a meeting next week to see what we've gotten done and reprioritize the list again. And during that week, everyone gets phone calls from, you know, hey, I really want that feature. I really want that feature. And there's all this jockeying. And so you find out the priority from a week ago is no longer good. So you spend hours going through all the tasks and prioritizing them all. Then you've got 5 cards done. The next week, y'all have a meeting again, and you reprioritize, which maybe is slightly different now. Which doesn't matter, because out of the 50 cards, only 5 disappear. The other 45 are still sitting there. And do you ever just stick with what you had last time as a priority? Like, no, those things always change and move around. And that's just completely wasted time. And I love, there was the book on this that I'll mention, had a great story where at Microsoft, where they implemented this, they would have weekly meetings to reprioritize all these back tasks. And what they found out was after they got rid of the prioritizing, and they actually implemented the lanes, they could get 2 things done every period. And what they would do is when one of them cleared out, when the queue had only 1 item in it, they would go to the 3 people that were stakeholders and give each of you, give me your #1 priority thing that you want done for this next cycle of 2 weeks or whatever. And each of them would turn in 1. And then they would go, okay, now let's fight about which one of these 3 is going to get done. And they'd take turns, and they'd try to, you know, once in a while someone would win and get priority. And the general idea was that it was much, much simpler to figure out what is the one next thing that needs to get done, instead of what is the priority of item number 37 in this list. That is wasted time by everyone. Because you have to, like, you know, actually study this stuff and figure out, like, ask the question of everybody. So next up, we want to measure everything. Analytics are, you know, numbers are king and numbers never lie. So as you're working through this, because you're monitoring things going across this board, you're actually tracking the number of items in each lane and how many move across, you can actually get real valuable numbers on what is the workload capacity of your team. You know, how much stuff do you actually get done? and how good at you are actually getting out regular releases, and how good are you at prioritizing what needs to come up next, and what is your turnaround time from the time I ask you a feature till it's actually done and deployed. With the Kanban board, it's very easy to kind of tell that information and to see what's going on. And so there's a great opportunity here to measure and be able to, you ever get that question like, how long will it take you guys to do this? And you're like, well, we got this going on and that going on, and someone's on vacation, and 3 months. You just pulled that number out of whatever, right? But if you actually know, we can get 5 items done a week. This item we estimate to be about 15 items, and Craig's on vacation for 2 weeks, so I'm actually not going to get 15 items done, all right, because he's going to be gone for 2 weeks. I'm just going to get, 13 items done. So, okay, this is going to take 3 weeks and change for the extra two bits that Craig wasn't there to work on. You can actually give a real, pretty solid value. And you'll find that over time, this actually gets to be, you actually get fairly reliable, predictable numbers with this stuff. It's kind of crazy. So when you read about Kanban, the big thing is that there's two ways to manage your work. You can either push work. The boss says, you shall do the following things, and have them done by the end of the week. And I'm going to go golfing, and I'll see you later. Or you can have pull, and we really like the pull model because you're not wasting time worrying about all the stuff that's coming down from unreasonable. You're letting developers pull work as they have the bandwidth to do it. And it seems like you get the same thing, except that you'll find that when the work is pull related, it kind of works out smoother, and you don't have as much. It's real capacity versus like management. I expect them to get this much done capacity. It's kind of a subtle thing, and when I kind of got it, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So yeah, so theory schmeary. This is all like how this is supposed to work, and so I'm going to introduce you guys to. Let's start small, okay? So this is there's several ways to do Kanban, right? The one, like we showed the board on the wall. If you have a company in an office and you can stick a wall with Post-it notes and everything, that is an amazingly great way to do things. Like that, I wholeheartedly do that. What's great is it lends itself to the idea of a daily stand-up. Any of you guys do a daily stand-up for what you're working on kind of thing? Right? I will say daily stand-ups are one of the single greatest things about working at Canonical. It provides so much visibility, interaction with your teammates. And it's that great chance to be like, I worked on this yesterday and I kind of got stuck, and does anyone can help me out? And problems get solved so much faster with daily stand-ups. There's so much more interaction of knowledge, exchange of knowledge. And again, there's that visibility on who's doing what, when was it going to get done. Things like if you've ever had a feature dependent on someone else getting their stuff done, if you have a daily stand-up, you'll find that you can plan out your work a whole lot better, because every day you're getting a small nugget of information on where they're at with your dependent feature, So, but for those of us that work remote or whatnot, we rely on electronic tools, toys. And so here's a basic Kanban board with, things to do. And you can look, if I scroll over, these are the things I've gotten done. This is just basic. This is just stuff like I need to, set up this interview thing. I'm going on a trip, so I got to, look at a dog sitter, and my wife freaks out when I'm gone, so a security system or whatnot. So tomorrow I'm going to make some phone calls on these things. I'm currently working on these things, and actually this is done, but it's been a crazy day, so it did not get moved. So if anyone were to look at this board, they could very easily see what it is that I'm working on, what it is that I'm going to be working on, and just more long-term things I need to do. I do this with kind of with Bookie, my open source project. So you can see this is more broken out by, these are the planned features for 0.6 that need to get done. These are the features that need to get done for the Android app to be released. And then these are things I want to look at doing. And then again, what is currently in progress and what's complete. So, what's cool is I can give you this URL and then turn around and ask you, hey, what's the state of Bookie development? And do you guys think you could answer the question fairly intelligently? If I said, hey, I would like to hack on Bookie, I'm like, great, go look at the Trello board and find a card that looks interesting to you. Put your name on it, put your face on it, move it across into working on, and I, as a project manager, can now very easily see what items are in progress, who's doing them, who do I need to bug, how long have they had that card, have they been working on it, So
Can you see everybody's cards? all
Yep.
at once?
An open source?
No, none of this stuff that I'm showing off here, or whatever, is open source. That's too much.
Is that a commercial product? Or?
Trello is free for most stuff. You pay for special features that they add. So they've got support for things like attaching Google Docs and other cool stuff. They call them Power Packs or something. And you can pay to get extra added features for things. So,
but it is a web app.
But it is a web app. Yeah, it's a web. It's run by. Trello's run by the guys that do. Is it Fogbuzz or is it the other guys?
Fogbuzz, Stack Exchange.
Yeah, right. Stack Exchange and stuff. They're a bunch of users because we like them, so we like them. For work, we use this thing called Lean Kit, and this is our board, and it's very large and crazy and scary, and it gets scarier when I pull out our backlog, you know. So I'm going to walk you guys through this so you guys could actually come do my job, because why not? So we're going to start in the backlog, and like any team, I'm lead of a team that's 6 or 7 guys, depending on who's on paternity leave and not, and all that kind of stuff. And so what we're actually working on right now is the idea of trying to figure out what is that magic number of items we can get done in a certain time frame. So we're beginning to work on 2-week iterations, where every 2 weeks we have what's called planning poker meeting, where we run through a series of cards and the team together goes, how long will that take to get done? And the hope is that the wisdom of the crowds will come forth, and I say it'll be 6 days because I'm pessimistic, and someone else is say 2 days because he's optimistic, and we end up agreeing somewhere in the middle that it's probably 3 or 4 days of work, and that's what we should pin on that card. So we do 2 points for a day, right? 1 point's a half day, 2 points is a full day, and we mark each card with how many days it is. The general idea, we really, in an ideal world, we want one of these cards to be 1 day's work. That's 1 day's work to implement, to get code reviews, to get through continuous integration, and to land. So practically, most things end up being like a 3. If a task is large, then we look to break it down to try to fit it within little 1-day iterations, and that gives us a bunch of great things. One, no one's ever off on an island working on this code base for a long chunk of time without the ability to A, look up for error, B, to have some amount of work done. Developers love that feeling of accomplishment, Woohoo, my card is done! I did something today. When you have like 4 days, 5 days, 6 days worth of work in one branch of things, all those days before the last one, you feel like you didn't really accomplish much. Like, what did you do today? Well, I thought a lot about the problem. And I almost wrote a test. But not quite, not yet. Tomorrow. I don't want to get too busy there. And it prevents the code base from getting really hard to test and integrate because you're landing stuff all the time. And we really believe that we should be able to basically do a release from our trunk branch of work at any given time. Right now, we're going to have a big new spiel coming up on Monday. So we all know there will be releases done this week. Now we have got a set of cards we want to get done for the release, so the release will happen once those cards move to landed. But it's nice because really, if Mark Shuttleworth came to me and said, I need this new GUI feature that's not released, I would go, no problem. Let me just write down these commands and I will get you a release right now, because trunk passes CI, it's releasable. And that's a really freeing feature for you guys that might work on projects where you do a release every few months or whatnot. Like, that's scary. I can't imagine working that way anymore.
What is CI?
CI is continuous integration. So for like the Juju UI, it's a web app. We have a Jenkins server that runs, and every time a pull request is created to trunk, the Jenkins bot pulls it down and runs all the unit tests. It runs functional tests with Sauce Labs in IE10, Safari, Chrome, and Firefox. So like we hammer it, and if it passes, that happens while you're doing code review. So when code review's done, hopefully by then the CI results are in. Does this branch break anything or not? If it doesn't, then you can land it. The landing bot will then kick in, and it will re-grab the branch because the trunk might have changed since your code review started. Let's say sometimes you do a code review and you're like, this is all right, but you totally didn't have any tests for these 5 cases, and you should rethink how you did this feature or whatnot. You may have a branch in code review landing mode for a day, until you get back to it. And in that time, someone else's code might have landed that would break what you're working on. So once you get through review and CI says that everything's okay, then you can actually request it to be landed, and it's all automated. We don't believe in people touching it because people screw up. No, I do all the time. I just did it today. I broke something because I touched it, and I was very angry that I was allowed to touch it. I will not make that mistake again. So CI is very important to this because it helps us have a feeling of confidence in what we're producing and our ability to say we can ship it at any point in time, right? So this is our backlog of things we want to do. We've got several different kinds of cards. Reds are bugs. Yes, we have lots of bugs that we have to fix. And these are things that are filed and have a bug number and go in Launchpad. We have these green cards, what we call feature cards, or they're actually stories or something. What they are is it's an aggregate. So to support OS 10 is actually several cards of work. There's something like breaking it down, right? To support OS 10, which is actually Safari, or no, this is actually OS 10 in Quick Start. We have to make sure that all our dependencies will build in OS 10. We have to make sure that we update the set of code that installs Juju, because right now it does apt-get install, which apt isn't on OS 10. And so this OS 10 card will be a feature card to represent this task is in progress or whatnot, but we'll have individual cards for each chunk of work that will be done one at a time. The other one, tooltips. So we got to add tooltip support. Tooltips need to belong in about a half dozen different places in the UI. So we'll break that down, where we'll create a base tooltip, like JavaScript class. We'll apply it to one location, get it reviewed, make sure that the theory and the widget design and all that stuff is good. We'll test it, we'll land it. Then future branches will then take that and apply it to other locations in the code base. We have firm rules, firm-ish rules. If your branch is 400 lines of code, a 400-line diff, so that's diff. When you run the git diff or whatever, it's not how many lines you actually touched, but how many lines that diff is. It has to be 400 or less. You can have one review and one QA, and then you can land it. If it's more than that, you have to get 2 reviews and at least 1 QA before you can land it. And if it's over 800 lines of Python or 1,000 lines of JavaScript, break it down. Too much. And that's to aid code review. I love, there's a comic that's like, if you have a 5-line code review diff, they'll find 10 things wrong with it. If you have a 500-line code review, they'll say it's okay. Because you'll just kind of go through and go, oh yeah, that looks fine, And so the red cards are the bugs, and the yellow ones are just tasks. And so these are all the things we'll sit down. So in the pool, we've got a 2-week window. So the pool, there's things that we're not going to get done right now in the next 2 weeks. The on deck is what we're going to actually run through for our planning poker session. So we'll go through and we'll put numbers on everything on Friday in here. And a few of them have numbers, so what you'll see is that, so like these ones at the top, they were in the planning poker session last 2-week cycle, but they weren't deemed worthy of priority to be pulled across. So notice when I pull cards from what we should do to what we will do, I'm only prioritizing and dealing with the ones that we scored. These I'm not thinking about. They're not in scope for this 2 weeks. They're out of my head, and it's stuff I don't have to worry about, and it helps cut down on my workload and the teams.
So what do the numbers represent?
The numbers are our amount of work. So this is 2, that's 1 day. This is 4, it's 2 days. This is 2, it's 1 day. That's the estimate on what we as a team think that card will take to land. Right? So we'll go through and we'll add some more.
What tool is this you use?
This is LeanKit. It's leankit.com. Now, the other thing to notice is that we've got, this is just the maintenance. So this is just for bugs, things we need to do as far as maintenance. This is not adding new features, right? This is just getting stuff ready to go. So, oops, this is a critical regression. Someone forgot to enable the upload button. There's a bug. We need a test and a fix. This is a urgent regression. This is the very next card that will get pulled off to work on. Down here we've got, notice this has got 1, 2, 2, 4, 2, 2. You notice my head's on this one because I said I was going to write some docs and I haven't, so I suck. But aside from that, it's this great visibility on what should I work on next, right? And then notice at the top, these numbers here, this 15, this 9, these are the work in progress limits. I will not put more than 15 maintenance cards in this lane, so we will not all have maintenance stuff to work on. The urgent one will only be 9 urgent things at a time. Other than that, then the lane's a lie. If we've got more than 9 urgent items, which for us each one is about a day, so we've got a week worth of work in urgent, then that just says we've got bigger problems, As far as features, you actually see we've got down here two other lanes. We've got Project 1 and Project A. When I first started working here, I was like, what is Project 1? And what is Project A? And how are they different? I don't understand. And I said, well, go look at the feature card. So this is actually, we're working on implementing machine view. And this feature is behind a feature flag. If you've never worked with feature flags on a software product, go do it now. It's the most amazing, freeing thing ever. The general idea is that you have to mangle the URL, and then a certain other part of the code base is processed, so you can see a feature in progress without exposing it to everyone who uses your product. And so it's great to be able to work on a feature over a period of weeks and not have to worry that users will find it, hit it, and what is this? Well, it's not done yet. Don't worry about that yet. Like, I don't know. And then we can have QA and design look at the feature in progress. We give them a URL with the mangled flag bit in it and say, go here, go to this URL, and you can see what we've implemented, and they can give us feedback throughout the development process. Beautiful thing. You can see that there are no cards in the ready to code here. And that's because they've all been moved off and done. So what this means is that this so we have, let's go through, we got ready to code. Needs specification is we have a card we want to get done, but we don't have enough information to do it. So this is, if it's in here, it's a cue to me, like I need to go bug somebody and make a phone call or send an email. Tracking is we're not doing it, but we're watching it. Oftentimes the work we're doing depends on what the Juju core team is doing. And we can't implement the UI for it until they've implemented the API for it. So we stick things in tracking that we're watching, but are not our real responsibility because we want to know what the status of that is. We've got branch start, which is basically, we try to do a pre-implementation call. You look at the card, what's involved in it, and then you get a hold of somebody and go, hey, I want to talk this through with you. And you talk through and you go, okay, this is what the bug is. I think this is about where in the code I see this issue. This is my plan to fix it. What do you think? And it's great to get a sanity check to go, nope, I filed that bug and that's not what you're looking at. That's totally the wrong thing. You've misread the card, the bug, and everything. And they can set you straight before you go through and fix something that wasn't meant to be fixed. So from branch start, you go to actually coding it. So here, Jeff is working on creating this thing. It's 3 cards wide, and these little badges tell me what product it's on. So this is on the Juju GUI, the Juju GUI. We've got other ones up here, which are Juju Quick Start, the charms, the production tooling that we use to deploy these things, so we can kind of tell where this card belongs to, what project. What's nice here is that these have all been done, which means that if you're looking for a card to work on, you're not going to be able to work here. You have to either go work in maintenance or you have to come down here to Project A. Project A is working on moving the inspector to the left, and that's a different feature flag. And so as a manager, what's cool is that I've promised to get this work done in 3 separate categories of tasks, right? We've got maintenance tasks, machine view work, and inspector work. And all I did is I put the cards in the lanes, and I let the team go at it. And they chose to work on the machine view ones, that's great. If you want to work on all the cool cards, that's awesome. But now, those cards are gone. You now have to come back and work on the uncool cards. And this gets into the idea of letting developers pick what they want to do. I've just told my boss, we'll get these things done in 2 weeks. The order they get done in, I don't care. Right? And so the developers are happier because they're picking the work they get to do, and I'm happier because I don't have to micromanage, no, you go do this, no, you go do this, you go do that. I just go, we should get this stuff done, guys, and they go, yes, that sounds good. So here we've got some ready to code. This X means this one is blocked. So here's a card that we will get done this 2-week cycle, but it's currently blocked on another card. Again, this is that power of visibility of just a sticky note, to have the little red X in the corner to say that this is blocked on something, and you can easily look at it and find out what is it blocked on, and let me go work on that task so that I can unblock this and we can then work on it going forward. So we go from coding to review. Review, like I say, could take time. Sometimes if your reviewer has some suggestions and stuff for you. The next lane is what we call the landing lane. And this is what I broke today. I broke our continuous integration server environment. Whee, me. So this poor guy has got a card that's done, it's been reviewed, it's okay, but he can't land it because our automated system is not working. So fortunately, I will get that spun back up with the power of Juju tomorrow morning in about an hour. And then what we have is once it's landed, we then, every day in our stand-up, we run through this list of the daily call, what things got done. So this was great, because if you were waiting on one of these cards to be accomplished to do your own work, in the daily call you will hear, I got this and this and this done. And while it's here, you can go pull up what branch it was, go look at the diff, find out how it was done. And so, again, this daily call, what we'll actually run through in a daily call is what was done today, and then we'll check everybody's card, just what they're in progress, and go, how is your card going, how's your card going? And a lot of times it's like, yep, working on it, yep, working on it, yep, working on it. But if there is anything to bring up or anything you learned that you need to share with the team and stuff, we have that mechanism in the daily call to say that. And it's normally like a 10, 15-minute thing to really keep everyone in the loop. No one's out of the loop of what's been going on, After daily call, it goes to releasable. So if they were like, hey, what's going to be included in the next release? I go to this lane and I just scroll down. Here's the things that we're going to do on the next release. And at the end of the 2 weeks, we're going to try, well actually this week we're going to, the end of the 2 weeks is coming. So we'll do a release. I'll run through these cards. We will write up a changelog based on the cards and the diff. Any bugs that are linked in here, we'll go to the bug report, mark them as fixed release to make sure that we keep our bugs in sync. And then I'll clear this lane out and move it to archive, and we'll start a new releasable lane, right? And we'll go for the next 2 weeks. Yeah?
Quick questions. What's the red triangle under the red card? Is that
This is a high priority, so these were very important to get done. Because we're doing a release this week, these things were blocking release, so they were marked as high. Again, I'm giving visual cues to the team on what's really important to get done, but I'm not mandating you go grab that card next, right? So, in theory, there's still some of that freedom and stuff for them to pick and choose, but they're picking and choosing between what's really important to get done.
You mentioned your changelog. Is that generated as the get?
Yeah, well, you kind of do both, because sometimes the get log is, we try to do more high level, because in theory the Juju GUI is used by a bunch of sysadmins. It's kind of a producty thing. We don't go through, I fixed I reworded this, I changed the spelling on that, I made this a blue link instead of a red link. We tend to go more, we fix these bugs. So if you had these bugs, FYI, they're now released. We're working on this feature. We'll actually include the things behind feature flags, so that if you're an interested user of the product, you can actually enable the feature flags yourself and go look at what's in progress. We are open source and we release very often. We love the web for that, and so we take advantage of it. And then you'll see in the next thing here we have what is labeled the weekly review. The stand-ups should be short calls, right? 5, 10, 15 minutes. But once in a while you learn something new, you have an idea, you want to propose that we change something. Let's use a different test runner because it's going to do a lot of nice things for us. Or we had a really serious bug that was really hairy, and let's all talk about how not to do this again. So what we'll do is we'll create cards in the weekly review lane here. And then on our Friday stand-up, it's actually, instead of a 15-minute call, it's a 45-minute call. And the idea is to walk through any important tasks in that window to go, okay, let me share with you some extra information. We don't want to bog down the daily stand-ups, but once a week we'll enable that time. And then we tend to put those on a blog, write them up, kind of share to the world. We learned these important lessons this week. Here's what was going on, kind of stuff. It's kind of interesting, and it's good to have that kind of. We used to call it the weekly retrospective, which is kind of a neat. You think about it that way, it's really useful. But what's nice is to have a set aside time for it, so that throughout the week we're not all getting bogged down and everyone else's little stuff is like, okay, make a card for Friday. Make a card for Friday. We'll talk about it Friday. You punt it off. So, yeah.
Your stand-ups, what time of day do you guys do those?
So because we've got people from Mountain Time to Italy, so we do, ours is right now, it's at 11 o'clock Eastern our time, which is like afternoon time for the guy in Italy and morning for the guys in Colorado and Canada. So we try to make it, I like it, I've always had mine early in the day, and I like that where it's just a couple hours in, so I can get through my email, what am I gonna work on today, then go to the stand-up and go, this is what I'm gonna do today, this is what I've, my plan is or whatever, and then the next day, hopefully, my item is that landed, that's done. I'm gonna go grab this new item, right? So, yeah, it's kind of different for everybody. Yeah?
Are you dividing tasks between people writing specs and people doing coding and people doing QA?
Yeah, oftentimes, so we treat the different things differently, right? So for QA, QA is part of our code review process, which is part of landing every branch. So any change is QA'd immediately by the code reviewer. So we don't tend to have like QA personnel. What we do have is we have a rolling, everyone has a dedicated QA day. Every 2 weeks you come up and your goal is to file a bug. As soon as you file a bug, you can quit. So the faster you find a bug, the sooner you're done with your QA day. But the idea is that kind of every other day at least somebody is doing some level of just manual QAing through stuff. And that's not on a card, that's just kind of a standing task, And so sometimes you're like, what did you get done today? Well, not a lot, it was my QA day. Okay, we wait on that. Now, as far as specs and stuff, oftentimes these cards are investigate. So like before we start a new feature, like we're working on this machine view and he added a bunch of API calls. His first card was investigate what API calls we need to communicate with in order to add this feature, right? So the card is investigate, and he took notes or whatever, and then that card was in coding while he was investigating. It was in kind of hop review landing, straight into done, and then done, and the daily call is like, I found out what we need to do. So then from that...
It's the same people doing the investigating.
Yes.
As they're doing the developing, as they're doing the QA.
Yeah, this is all within our team, right? If it's not our team, it's usually a tracking card or something, because we don't have control over it. But this is where if you're managing a team that has different people, we would split out more lanes where one team was looking at certain lanes, another team was feeding them with with other lanes of work.
It's
or
not
whatnot.
obvious to me when I look at this how you're limiting the work in process on it.
It's right here. So the numbers at the top. Every lane you'll notice has a number on the top. So maintenance has 3. There can only be 3 cards working in maintenance at a time. We've got 6 guys in the team. That means only 3 of them will be working on the maintenance work right now. The other 3 will have to be in Project 1 or Project A. If you go down, you'll see, and basically there's 3.
So when it comes out of maintenance, where does it go?
When it comes out of maintenance, it goes into landing and then into releasable.
And is there a limit on the landing queue?
Yes, there's 3. If there's more than 3 landing, then there's a problem with our landing process, and this is a call for us to fix it.
Working on maintenance
If your card is stuck in landing, that means you're not doing anything else right now.
But if there are 3 cards already in landing,
Yeah.
you stop people working on maintenance.
Yep.
Well, I'm confused because isn't ready to code part of maintenance or?
So yeah, so this is 3 cards for all 3 of these lanes, right? There are
For
only
that's for active.
right for active. Okay, so what are you looking?
So that's not the total for maintenance, that's the
Oh,
total for
Well,
active maintenance.
So this is the total number of allowed in progress cards for maintenance. Right? Because the maintenance cards go from what we're going to do in 2 weeks. So this is 2 weeks worth of work, which is 15 and 9 at most 24 cards of work here. They go into start, and once it hits start, you are one of 3 limited work in progress here. If there are 3 maintenance cards and there were no other cards on the board to pick, you're in Slack task mode. You can go grab a Slack task item, and we actually have a lane down here at the bottom for Slack and low priority maintenance. So if you can't grab a card because the lanes are full, you would come down here and look at things like writing some tests for this, looking at a different test runner, updating this JavaScript package that we have a dependency on. They've got a new version, but we should pull it in and test to make sure it works. But because we have an actual physical copy of the old version, we don't care. Like, it's working for us, the bug wasn't critical, we're in no rush to update, so it's a Slack task item, And so, but this is a temporary, if you have no room. So, and then notice, like, it's the same thing here for Project 1 and Project A. There's a limit of 3 cards in each of these. So, again, there can only be 3 things.
You've already got 3 cards in there, and the next spot for the task you would be working on is to go there, but it's full.
Right.
The rule is you have to stop working on what you're doing and go
Yeah,
somewhere else.
right. Because otherwise you're gonna.
It's not Kanban.
Right, well, it's not Kanban, you're not pulling limited amount of work, it's an indication there's a problem in the system. And either A, I may go, you know what, it's totally reasonable to have 4 as a valid card number there, let me change that. Or like in the landing, if there's 3 in landing and someone's trying to put a 4th card into landing, then something is wrong with our landing system and we have to make that faster and more efficient. And so whoever's free should go work on that right now, because that's blocking us from actually making good progress through our project here. Yeah.
How do you handle triage in this type of system? Let's say you have Mark as one of his, a really good shower, and he comes up with this wall of text of stuff that he wants to change or something like that. How do you handle that?
Tell them we'll see it next 2 weeks. We create cards for it in the backlog, we score it, we move it across.
So he doesn't act, if you have, how would you handle something where you get some giant requirement or something like that, and you are the person who is putting this into the system? Do you have to split it off into different tasks?
So like all these cards in this backlog, this is my job as team lead.
Okay.
Is I sat down for 2 days on the machine view and created all the cards here as tasks, right? And so I sat down, like, what's involved in this? And I would go very carefully through the code. Okay, we'd have to add these database tables. We need to update these queries, which is a task. We'd have to then make sure that we update the cache to respond to those queries, which is another task. And I would break them all down. And very often, a card of work turns into more cards, right? That investigate card, which is investigate which API calls we need to write or talk to, split into 3 different cards of implement call 1, call 2, and call 3, right? Because each of those was a day's work to get updates. We use the call, that we have unit tests for it, that we get it reviewed and landed. And so very often, a card of work will split off in multiple cards as follow-ups or whatnot. But they all get a card. They all go back into the ready-to-code lane from there. Anytime we get a bug in, I triage the bug. And so you'll notice that in the maintenance, in this maintenance on deck, there are a lot of bug cards, all with these little bug numbers on them. And that's because people have filed these bugs, and I have judged these to not be critical, to stick in the urgent and make them part of unplanned work for the 2-week cycle. These need to be planned, but again, they have to go through the process. We have to planning poker to find out how much work is involved in fixing that bug. Then I have to plan it for the next 2-week cycle. So when George is like, Rick, when is this bug gonna get fixed? I'll go, well, it's on the priority list to be talked about for the next 2-week cycle. We're not gonna start it this week. We may start it the week after, in which case it's within a 2-week window. So in theory, I can tell them it'll be fixed within 3 weeks. I don't know when within those 3 weeks, but somewhere within those 3 weeks, that bug will get fixed. And George goes, okay, as long as I have a number that I can, tell people, in 3 weeks we'll have this fixed. Okay.
So you're using this whole methodology within the Juju team. Is other teams within Canonical?
Yeah, a lot of teams use it. A lot of teams use it slightly differently. This board was actually put together by my predecessor, Gary, who left us to go to Heroku, and I'll kick him in the shins when I can see him next time because he's really tall and I can only reach that high. But anyway, so this kind of layout is really his work. We used Kanban in my previous team with a different team lead in a different way. It wasn't as broken down by project like this, where you had clear delineation between maintenance and project 1 and A, which is why it was so baffling when I first moved to this team. But yeah, this is we're trying to get everyone in Canonical to use this. Most teams do, but a lot of them have their cards are 3 to 4 day cards, so for them, this idea of a feature card tracking with individual day-to-day things is just not what they tend to do, and so we're trying to get that instilled more. So yeah.
So you have a bug tracking system, right?
We use Launchpad, yeah, we're Canonical. Huh?
And so it's external to this, right? So
Yep.
someone enters a bug and then you go and, is it automated to put it in here? Or?
So this has an API, and we've got a Python script that in theory will do that. In practice, because it needs manual work, and a lot of bugs are just low priority. Yep, that's nice to have, it's not on the board. Again, if it's not gonna be something we're gonna work on in the near future, don't put it on the board. It's mental capacity to process that, and I can already tell you that that's not happening this 6 months. So it kind of falls into whenever there's a bug, I get an email and I will go through and triage it and go, okay. So like the one bug right now that's in the top of this urgent lane up here. Notice there's no number on it. It wasn't here a week ago to be planning poker. It just popped up. Someone had a bug. It needs to be fixed before this release this week, so it's in urgent. And this is a key that the very next open developer who finishes a task, so, you know, Francesco here, who just finished a bunch of stuff, should be grabbing that card next and starting that bug, because it is an urgent bug that must get fixed out of band. And so when my boss says, Rick, how much work are you going to get done? I take, okay, each developer, so 6 developers, for 5 days, it's 30 points, right? Or, well, it's 2 points a day, right? So it's actually, you know, 10 by 6, so 60 points a week by 2 weeks. So I'm like 120 points for the whole time period. The first thing I did was slash 80%. Okay, we're going to do 80% of that, because I can guarantee you we will fill 20% of the time with either underestimations of work or things like this that are unplanned work that we have to get in. And so that's kind of my job as processing how much work we're going to get done to plan for these things. But again, it follows the same process. The card is here. The developers can all see this, and when they go to grab their next card, they grab it, they go to starting it, they go to coding it, reviewing it, and landing it. And I can track, this is very important, my eye is on where this bug is. And I don't have to interrupt anybody, make a phone call, make a ping in IRC. I can tell where that card is at any given time. And in worst case scenario, in the stand-up the next day, I'll be able to get a status update. So, you looked at that. What are you thinking? A day? 2 days? I need to know. And they'll be like, no, it's very simple hack fix. It'll take me a day to get done. Okay, then I can plan. But I don't have to interrupt him and multitask him and break his concentration and stuff, because I have no clue where this is when someone comes to me and goes, Rick, where's that bug? Oh, I'll have to go talk to the guy I gave it to, you know? So, yeah.
2 more questions. So you've planned 80% of capacity is what your bandwidth is. Do you guys look at the velocity history?
Yeah, so you totally, what's nice with this with an API is you can do all that. And so I don't have experience doing it because I'm a relatively new team lead. The guys that did before, they would actually do, we have 6-month sprints. One of the things they do every 6 months is they look at all the different teams and look at their velocity and how many cards they moved and stuff. But it's very variable, right? Like I was saying, the Juju core tends to have bigger work item cards. So we would move more cards. Does that mean we did more work? Not necessarily, right? It's all based on what the points ended up being and stuff, you know? Like, there's flexibility within the system to still do your own thing. And so that's not always, you know, a great measurement of stuff. But yes, the idea here is to maintain velocity as much as possible over and over and over again. And developers land something at least every other day usually, which they get little victories. They can see their work in progress with feature flags. Like, if you're a developer, this is a great way to go, because there's no real questions. You just get to work. You get to work on stuff interrupted. You get to land things and have it show off. Like, it's a beautiful world. Yeah.
And then is one of your tasks as a project manager to go through and, like, once the developers say it's resolved and maybe it's in QA and stuff like that, then you go and you validate it and then update it in the bug tracker, or they?
Yeah, so like I'll go through this releasable lane when we do a release, and I'll go through, because I'm very handy with middle click opening a new tab and a mouse. And I'll mark them as fixed release and stuff, just, you know, but someone has to do it, right? You could make it the person who does the releases job. You could make it, you know, whatever, who feels like touching the bug tracker today, yeah.
So from a DB getting things done perspective, this would be more like the next actions type list and who's got what in that list. And then something like the bug tracker list would be more like a someday maybe. Anything that's not on here would
Right.
be more of a someday we're going to get to it eventually.
I mean, yes and no, right?
Yeah.
Yes, in the sense that when the next 2 weeks comes up, I need to make sure I'm aware of what bugs have not been done yet and prioritize, are any of these important enough to schedule in the next 2 weeks. On the other side of that, there are bugs there that are in, like, you know, they're not technically, they're in progress, right? I mean, there are things that people are doing, and so, or we already have cards for. So it's not necessarily a distinction of what's doing and not doing, it's a mixture of both, right? But again, that only feeds the maintenance side. The 2 other sections here, these project sections, are the new features that we're being asked to do, which we're doing alongside of our bug fixing and maintenance and stuff. So what's nice is we're not all just like, all right, everyone, let's all fix bugs for a week because it got really backed up. You know, no, we're like spreading it out. We're guaranteeing we're going to fix some bugs every cycle. We're going to add some new features every cycle. We're going to make steady progress on everything we need to do. We're going to do it in a predictable manner every 2-week cycle. And then, like I said, I use these for little personal things too. This is the extreme, right? Like, this is me and a team of 6 other guys and lots of features going on in coordination with design folks and bug systems and users. And I mean, this is
Pretty complex, yeah.
Don't get crazy on this, because, but I just want to kind of show you how this can really scale up. And even at this size, it's very visual to see what's going on. It frees up developers to eventually hit slack time, to be able to work on those things you always want to work on but never have time for. Because I have promised my boss, we will get, what did I say, 120, we will get 120 work items done. And he has signed off that these are the things we're going to get done. If we get all these cards done, and it's Friday, grab a free, grab another a slack time card and work on something interesting for the day. Because we've delivered what we promised we're going to deliver. We have time, you know. And if we don't, well, then we got to do better about estimating and whatever. We kind of go from there.
So for Canonical, you use LeanKit. For your own, for Bookie, you're using Trello.
Yeah.
To pretty much accomplish the same thing.
Exactly. Yep.
Great.
Alrighty, where's my presentation? So that was from theory, woo, magic words, to what we actually do in real life. It actually works. So I showed and walked you through the board of doom. So again, daily stand-up. I can't emphasize this enough. There are two practices. Like I went to Canonical to work on Launchpad. I did not care to work on Launchpad. What it's written, you know, it's Python, but it was not. It was Zope, and it was huge, and I wasn't never a huge Launchpad fan. But they promised me I would have code reviews, which means I would actually have my code looked at by other developers who would suggest, you know, ways I could improve and whatnot, and make me a better developer. And it does. Like I can't emphasize enough. It is that strong. They were going to have continuous integration. They're going to make me write tests, which was going to make me a better developer and make me have more faith in what I actually built, which they totally did. And they're going to give me a daily stand-up where I would every day have a chance to bring up anything I wanted to bring up, to have feedback and see the team I'm working on. And if you work from home at all, this daily stand-up visibility is priceless, to where you don't feel like you're some dude in a basement on an island working on something. Those three things were worth not working on what I wanted to work on in order to just make myself be a better developer. And if you're not doing those, talk to me, whatever, like they're so important. So the daily stand-up provides great communication on what's blocked, what's almost done. Ooh, we can almost start the cool feature we've all been wanting to do. What's far from done, you know. Hey, don't plan on this getting out. Like I know you asked me for this new feature, but it's way back over here. It's not getting done anytime soon. It wasn't pulled into our 2-week cycle, so I can guarantee you we're not even going to start it for 2 weeks, you know. Anything new to share? You know what? I hit this bug and I solved it with this cool debugging tool, and how cool is this? And you all should check that out. And suddenly you have knowledge share, which is powerful from all these techies. And sometimes you have to blow up the build, right? Once in a while there's a branch that you have to just, you know what, I'm going to land this branch. It is going to, everyone's going to get angry emails. It's going to blow up the build. It's okay. The follow-up branch will be right after it, but I am planning on ruining everyone's day. I'm going to let you know ahead of time. And it's good to have that kind of heads up and warning. So as a developer, you know, like what's in this Kanban thing for me? You know, visibility. You can see what the heck's going on. There's no mysteries in life. Trust, and the Kanban book makes a lot of this trust thing. By working in these small chunks regularly in a standard way, you develop trust in a lot of different ways. One, you develop trust with the people who rely on your product, right? We're looking at trying to do every 2 weeks a release, because we have 2-week cycles. At the end of that, it makes a lot of sense to do a release. We don't have stuff stuck in progress for months at a time. As we do those releases, every 2 weeks we'll have to get better at the release process, which we're actually pretty good at now, which means that whenever we do a release, people will trust it because we're doing them frequently. We've got the kinks worked on how to do it. It's not that whole like, oh, we have to release the software, so who has the manual for that? What did we do last time? Wasn't there some kind of bug, something hit? They had to like do something special, change the permissions on some file. Did we ever fix that? I don't know, let's try it, you know, those releases from hell. And a lot of trust with your management, because they can see that you're doing work and what you're doing. And if a lot of unexpected crap sneaks into the cards, I can see them, right? They're in the lane with no numbers on them, and I can go, hey, look, we promised to get all this done. We didn't because you guys asked for, you know, 10 super high maintenance things in the last 2 weeks, which killed our velocity on getting the features done and stuff, you know. It's all very visible and there for everyone to see. So dependable progress, regular updates. again, that landing, winning feeling, as a developer, the coolest thing is when people use it. I'm working on Google Summer of Code, and what's awesome is when a student does a branch and we work on it back and forth for 3 days, and I try to get them to get their standards up and write tests and to pass lint and to kind of work on this feature. When I deploy that, it's like handing gold to these kids. I mean, they're just like, oh my God, everyone can see my feature I added. Like, it's so cool. That's what we do, man. We like to build cool things because we want people to use it, And then slack time. We all wish we had more time to do cool things that would help the project and help the team and make us more efficient, and we just never fit it in. And in a way you don't fit it in, but in a way you do with this kind of setup. And then just sanity. It's very predictable. As a dev, there's no fear that I'm going to go to some dev and be like, hey. So the CEO just said he wants feature X, and he wants it tomorrow, and so I picked you to do it, and hopefully you can stay tonight and tell your family that you're not going to be home because we have to get it done. They know what's on the board, what's coming up, what's in the lane, it's very predictable insanity for them. So the thing is, when you go to do this, iterate on it. Everyone does it differently. The work in progress numbers are suggestions. At first set them. Don't run without the numbers, but measure. Put numbers, measure how's it working, and tweak them if you need to. The lanes are arbitrary. They're basically they kind of fit the model of to do, doing, and done. But you can see on ours, we actually break it down much more fine-grained than that. So by looking at what lane it's in, I can tell he's still looking into how to solve the problem. He hasn't had a pre-implementation call yet. Or the dev has had that call, he is working on it now. Or this is almost done, it's in review. That's all under part of active, right? But that's very different from when the card's in the first lane of active and the last one, on where this feature and stuff is. So, feel free to iterate on this stuff and play with it. It's really great. So, yeah.
So you probably have to have people who are somewhat equivalent in capabilities to estimate the amount of time it takes to do.
I don't know. I can measure, right? You stick your name on a card, I can go back and look at that card on how long you spent on it, right? So there are guys, like Francesco had those 3 cards, like Francesco moves cards like nobody's business, right? But it all depends on what task he was working on and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you can have people that are slower on stuff, and you fit that into your thing. I said I could do 120 if I know one guy, like we were going to bring on a new guy next week, so he's not going to be moving a card a day. So when I bring him on, I'm going to count him as a half dev for a while until I see that he's actually keeping up with velocity, with everybody else. So as a lead, I can plan on that, right? Like if I know someone's not that, then I'll just take those points away from the overall system for the 2-week cycle. It's easy. It's math. Right? Any other questions? Cool. See ya.